This episode contains adult content and fictional violence against children. Howdy folks, I'm Caleb Sunstead, your host and game marshal. I'd like to take a minute at the top of the show to say with great gratitude thank you to Ariel Weiss, Greg Gray, Jared, Suzanne Hagen, along with all of our other patrons for supporting our show. It means the world to us, and thank you so much. Savage Worlds and the Deadlands Reloaded system is owned by the Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All music on the show is written and performed by Rudy Zuniga or William Cartwright. With all that out of the way, welcome way, way back to the Weird West. Violence never solved a thing. That's what people say that have never had their words fail them. People that never been pushed into a corner. People that ain't crows. Hiram may have held the name for longer, but there ain't a soul alive that would dispute Meadows' claim to it. People have always spun yarns about the woman, but one stuck with me. She's like a prairie fire, licking its way across the meadow, set furiously unto its purpose. A hell of a thing to look at, but God help you if it touches you. Sounds like a crow to me. We open up on a hazy sky. It's raining, but it's that type of rain where you can still see some of the sun poking through the clouds around it, almost like it's too bright of a day for the devil to be crying. The camera pans down to the muddy streets, and we see a horse-drawn wagon roll by the old fountain in the town of Hayseed. It was once a monument to the town's success, to the pioneering spirit of the place, but much like the people that live here, it's gone the way that most things do, and it started to crumble and fall apart. We see a teenaged Hiram Crow sitting on the fountain. Doug, what does Hiram Crow look like?
He's got a lanky form, starting to fill in with a bit of muscle here and there, but he's awkward. He's trying to grow a patchy beard in, scruffy and unkempt, despite his best efforts. Hair's tousled, he's dirty, his clothes are ratty.
Your form fits most of the town pretty well then, including the figures that are approaching you. Your eyes glance up, and you have seen these kids before. They're the Folsom children. They're kids of some local ranchers that run most of the town's water supply and make a fair bit of money selling it to the nearby ranchers. The oldest one is just a little bit older than you. The problem with small towns is you're kind of forced into interactions with everyone, whether you like them or not. Pretty much every conversation you've had with this kid has gone poorly. I think both you and him are a little too smart and a little too insecure to get along. He's got way nicer clothes than you. Cowboy boots that would be perfectly clean except for the mud they've picked up today. Black riding pants, a nice, pristine white shirt, black leather vest on top. He's wearing a hat that maybe will look good in a few years when he grows into it. He's got freckles on his ginger face and the tiniest bit of a mustache, which he is far too proud of. While this young kid, Davy, has hit his growth spurt, his sister has not. She's half his height and twice as mean. What does Marjorie look like, Allie?
She's on the blonder spectrum of ginger with just like way more freckles than would be considered pretty. But, you know, she's working with what she got for a 14-year-old. Yeah, she's trying to keep up with her brother. She probably got some dirt on her face. Cause like, you know, shit's hard being a little girl.
Next to them two is a third kid that you don't recognize, Hiram. Davy comes walking up to you before you really have a chance to try to get away or anything. Well, hey there, Hiram. How are you today, sir? As the words leave his mouth, it sounds like a young kid trying to sound like an old man. As he talks, he has this sly smile on his face, and him calling you sir is wildly out of character for him.
Howdy, Mr. Folsom. How are you this fine day?
Hiram, you really don't have to be such an ass today. We're here with our cousin from out of town. I just figured I'd introduce him to you since you've been such a kind fellow to me and my sister. And he kind of gives you a smile that doesn't involve his eyes. He points to the boy standing next to him. This is my cousin Rick. As Hiram's eyes glance over to the third child, he's probably about 12. He's wearing a nicely fitted gray suit and tie, slick, slack pants with some polished shoes, or at least they were polished. And then he's got a very out-of-place hat, which you've probably seen Davey wear a few times before. Rick moves back on his boots and tips his hat at you. Howdy there, friend. I just in town with my cousins, and they said you were, He looks around. Well, they just said, you and your folks were awfully nice people to know.
Well, that was quite a nice thing of Mr. Davy to say, wasn't it, Rick? Pleasure to meet you, by the way.
I think he's kind of unaware of the subtext as you flash a look to Davy and both of you glare, and Rick just happily smiles, walks forward, and extends a hand to shake yours.
I think there's a moment where Hiram looks between all three of them and, meets Davy's gaze and sees that something's going on, but nervously licks his lips and reaches a hand out to shake Rick's, reluctantly, if nothing else.
There's almost a instinctive flinch as you go to shake his hand, like you were expecting something funny to happen. But you shake his hand, he takes a step back, smiles, and puts his hands in his pockets, which are a little too small. Davy smiles at the exchange and says, Hiram, I was just telling our cousin here about how your folks make some of the best stuff south of the border.
Oh,
Our cousin's from Houston, and he's never had any of our country stuff. And he smiles and winks at you.
Hiram's probably caved to this in the past, but now they've brought somebody else to him. So, this is a clear escalation. Now their pride is tied up in what they're doing, and he's being put on the spot to have to reinforce that. So, if I give in now, what's going to happen the next time? They're going to bring more of their friends, right?
Yeah. That's a rough thing for Hiram to come to grips with, for sure. There's a tense minute. You're sort of brought out of your thoughts by a drop of rain smacking you straight on your nose as this sort of this sprinkle comes down around you.
Well, David, that's a mighty kind thing for you to say. That might well be the case, but I ain't seen a lick of nothing from my parents in quite a while now.
There's $3 in it for you. Davy looks over to Marjorie as he sees Hiram hesitate.
I'd surely like to help you, but ain't nothing here. You should have stayed in Houston. Hayseeds, just dirt and rain and Folsoms.
Damn.
Oh, fuck. As those words linger in the air, there is an uneasy silence that is only being broken by the small pitter-patter of the rain in the mud around you, and the faint sounds of wagons rolling in the distance. And then Marjorie takes a step forward into the mud.
The mud splatters a bit onto Hiram's boots as she advances, and she says, Hiram, we don't have to be giving you anything, so I really suggest you just, give us the goods. Come on, you don't want this again, do you?
You don't want to disappoint Rick here.
Oh, Ricky came such a long way. She cracks her knuckles.
Davy, spurred on by Marjorie's fearlessness, takes a step forward as well, so they're almost flanking you on either side, Hiram, and they're standing, towering, or at least he's towering over you as you're sitting on this stone fountain.
I think this is a moment of truth for Hiram where he either buckles or he doubles down, so I think he's going to double down. And he looks at the Folsoms and then back to poor little Rick, who's... I feel this is one of those, conversations where both parties are speaking through a third party. They're present there and not actually partaking, but both sides are like, well, you can tell them.
Yeah, yeah.
Hiram looks to the Folsoms and then to Rick, and then back to the Folsoms while talking to Rick. Well, I surely don't want to disappoint a guest, but I can't give him what I don't have, and I don't think all the moonshine in the world can get rid of the disappointment of being related to a Folsom either.
Do you think Marjorie or Davy punches him in the nose?
Marjorie punches him right in his nose, sitting down at perfect punch and height. So does this little girl have a D6 fighting? What's going on with her? She's so scrappy.
Oh, man.
Scrappy she is.
Yeah, honestly, I think a D6 makes sense. I think she gets in a fight like every week.
Amazing.
Doug, what kind of Hiram is probably a D4, I think.
Probably a D4. Yeah, like he's had to scuffle, but he doesn't go looking for fights. He's had no formal training. Probably a D4.
His parry would be a 4 then.
Yep.
Oh, good. It's a crit fail.
Oh,
no.
God. Okay.
Oh, no.
I think that something being bad for Marjorie right now means things are going to be very bad for Hiram in about 5 seconds.
Probably.
We already talked about this muddy ground underneath you. I think the simplest thing to happen would be that Marjorie goes to like push you into this or punch you into this well, and you get out of it somehow. How do you get out of that situation, Hiram? Just like a couple feet away from Marjorie. What does that look like?
So is it like, is she going to fall into the mud instead?
Yeah, I think however you dodge it, we can do that first. However you dodge it, like she goes face first into the fountain as she tries to correct herself, hits her hand on some part of the fountain, which has like a sharp edge and like cuts the hand open that tried to punch you.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. So I think Hiram, if he's still seated on the lip of the fountain when Marjorie makes the clear shift to come and hit him, probably does a lean away roll type thing where he tries to get out of the way and she slips in the mud past him and tumbles forward.
What kind of injury does she get, Allie?
When she cracks into the fountain, she scrapes from like her palm clear up like into her forearm, and it just starts gushing.
Ooh.
There's a shot of Hiram's face, and I think even though these kids are sort of like enemies of yours in a way, you're all still kids, you know? And while you've seen blood, it's hard to deal with it when it's caused by you in a way. So as Marjorie looks at her hand, sort of wide-eyed and shocked, leaning over at this fountain, Davy looks to her and then looks to you. And there is a hate that fills in his eyes as he moves to protect his sister. He reaches down inside of his boot and starts to grab something out of it. What do you want to do?
Hiram's initial instinct is that's either a knife or a gun. And if it's a gun, I'm not going to be able to run away. So I just need to stop him from doing what he's doing or knock it out of his hands or something. So I think as she cuts her hand open, Hiram maybe puts his hands up like, I didn't have anything to do with that. And then he sees Davy start to go for whatever it is. And there's a moment of panic close up on Hiram's wide eyes as you can see him, like the gears turning in his head, like, what are my options here? And then maybe he just lashes out and tries to kick Davy's hand away. So I don't know if he's actually striking Davy to deal damage, or this is more of like a disarming tactic. Maybe it would be treated as like a trick. He's just trying to make him distracted, or...
Then let's do an opposed fighting roll. Okay. I think that Davy probably has the same thing you have. He's got a D4 because he's a bit of a bully. Not as much as his sister,
Fair
but
enough.
he backs her up.
I got a 3 and a 1.
Blew up the 4 on the D4. Just a 5, though.
All right.
Still beats you unless you want to spend a Benny.
I think Hiram would Benny this. I think this is an important roll.
Okay, do it. Yep.
3 and a 2. Still not going to do it.
Geez.
I'm not going to waste another one for him.
So you go for it. Are you kicking or are you grabbing?
I think it's a kick. This is like a knee-jerk reaction, and they're still far enough away that he can't easily reach, and that would like put him directly in harm's way. So in an effort to stay further away from the danger, but also cut it out, I think he just kicks out at him.
A kick goes out and it strikes at Davy's boot. And while it doesn't stop him from pulling out his knife, it like sends him off balance and he almost goes down to his knees, like his left hand stuck into the mud. His right hand pulls a knife out of his boot as he growls and stands up and starts to charge at you.
And I think as Hiram's doing all this, maybe he says something like, Davy, now's not the time.
He's going to make a fighting roll. 2 and a 1. He comes forward, but I think you've positioned yourself in such a way that it's easy for you to sort of just dodge back out of the way. It's like one of those jumping things where while he stabs at you. I think it's helped too by he's not exactly trying to kill you. You know, this isn't a kid with murderous intent. This is just a dumb kid swinging a knife around, you know,
Right.
whether Hiram makes that connection or not.
I don't think Hiram's ever had a knife drawn on him like this before. This is probably a new thing. Like, he might have been bullied before, but like, how often has he been threatened with like real, potentially deadly violence?
We cut to the barrel of a rifle. We can still hear in the background Davy coming at Hiram, yelling about his sister Marjorie in her hand, and the camera is just on this slab of iron with the rain dripping down on it. We hear a sharp breath intake and then silence before a trigger pull and the hammer firing. Allie, please make a shooting roll for Meadow. She has a D8 in shooting, a +1 for her trademark weapon, and a -4 because of how small her target is.
Okay, we blew up.
Holy crap.
Oh my
God.
god.
Damn, she's amazing. 13.
Crap, that's really good.
We cut to Hiram as the hat of Davy that's a little too big for him gets shot clean off his head. He comes to a stop as he looks around for his shooter. I think you follow his gaze as you hear the ratchet of a Winchester behind you, and you turn to see Meadow Nightingale. What does a teenaged Meadow Nightingale look like, Allie?
Meadow, she still has the gun up, looking down the sights. She has a loose sky blue blouse on. She has her skirt tied up a little higher, and you can see there are actually pants underneath. And her light brown hair is tied in a braid that drapes over one shoulder, and she looks quite angry.
How are you intimidating the Folsom kids away from Hiram?
She cycles the rifle, and I think there's a shot of the gun, and there's just a bird's wing engraved on the barrel, and she shoots into the dirt by Lowell Davy's feet, stares him down.
Make an intimidate roll. Something that's important to Meadow is this: whenever someone meets her or whenever someone talks to her, it's like there's just always a fire inside of her, you know, there's always something burning behind her eyes. So I think because of that, she's got to have at least a D4 in intimidation.
Okay.
You're also going to get a +2 to the roll because of your 2 raises on the shooting roll.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll roll.
I'm gonna roll his spirit over here.
Cool. I got a 3.
+2.
I got a 5.
Well, this is unfortunate. Davey rolled a D4 and a D6, and he blew up both of them. And then he blew up the 4. Yikes. Jesus.
Oh, no.
So he got an 11. Either way, you cut it. So you can Benny it, but I think that's probably unlikely.
Well, I mean, I might as well.
If you are going to spend a Benny, Allie, you have 2 reds and a white. So if you want to use a red and give me a Benny, you could add a D6. Or you can just straight re-roll with the white or one of the reds to not give me a D6.
Or you can let it ride.
I feel like
Or you can do both. You can fucking re-roll, add a D6. Who cares, you know?
fuck it. I'll start with my regular Benny.
The white Benny.
All right, trying again. So that's a 7. So I guess I could add that.
To succeed here, you'd need to get a 5
Yeah.
on your...
33% chance.
You know what?
do you
Fuck
think?
you. It's she's all or nothing right now. So have a red Benny. Oof, it's a 2. Well, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah. So the shot goes into the ground directly in front of Davy. As you rack it for the second time, he looks up at you, knife still in hand, and he knows he's outgunned, and he thinks you aren't going to shoot him, but he's not sure. So he's going to go for Hiram.
Yes,
And I
bring it
think
on.
at this point, let's do initiative,
Holy
yeah?
shit.
Oh, I'm ready here. This is great.
Cool. I'm not. I got to get some cards. Davy gets a jack of clubs. Marjorie gets a 4 of spades. Rick gets a queen of clubs. Hiram, you get a 3 of diamonds.
Ooh, I done fucked up, boys.
Oh, you dumb nerd.
Yeah.
Meadow gets a jack of hearts, which means it goes Rick, Meadow, Davy. So you'll have a window of opportunity.
However, briefly.
Yeah.
I think at this point, Rick is going to make a spirit roll at -2. Yeah, so Rick runs. Rick is not getting involved in a gunfight with his cousins, this 12-year-old kid,
Smart boy.
and he
Yeah.
takes off. I think he's too scared to yell out at this point, but he is just taking off running. Meadow, you're up.
So Meadow would like to multi-action. She'd like to attempt to intimidate him one more time, and if that fails, she would like to shoot him in the leg.
Jesus fuck. Okay, yep, Meadow, don't fuck around. Let's do it.
Don't you fuck me, you bastards.
Oh man, what'd you get?
15.
Jesus
Crap.
fuck. Allie, he just blew up. He's at 12, dude. He blew up twice already. So you got 15.
I got a 15.
So you succeed if he rolls a 1 or a 2. Let's see. I got a 5. Got a 5. You do have a red Benny left.
Well, I gotta use it,
So you
don't
have a
I?
50-50 well, actually, you got a 66.
Damn
you get
it.
a 1 or a 2, it's nothing. He's at 17, you're at 15.
Damn it, Caleb. Give me my Benny. I'm using it.
All
So
right.
you're adding a
I'm
D6.
adding a D6. Ugh,
Perfect. And I'm getting a Benny.
Oh man, this is bad.
it is
This
bad.
is a bad situation.
Oh God.
It's not good.
What'd you get?
I got a 2.
Fuck.
God damn it.
Whatever you do, it is enough to scare off Marjorie, but it's not enough to scare off Davy. So Davy is going for Hiram. He's going to grab him, not stab him. How do you fail at stopping him, but succeed at scaring off Marjorie?
I think she takes a step forward and says, Davy, don't make me send you back to your mama in a coffin.
Marjorie emerges from the fountain, muddied and bloodied, and I think even her loyalty to her brother is not quite enough to keep her here. However, it is enough for her to stop for a moment, beg him to come with her, and then run. As she takes off running, it's not her turn yet, still your turn, Allie, and he is not dissuaded. He's going for Hiram. He got a little bit closer in that instant, and it's almost looking like he's trying to grab him to put Hiram between him and your gun. I think it's a -2 for a called shot to the leg.
Well, I guess it's also a -2 for the multi-action. Can I
minus-
just shoot him like anywhere? Can I just shoot at him?
Yeah.
So this is at -3.
-3?
I'll just roll for the body part it hits.
That's a 5.
Okay, this rifle should have 2d8 damage, so...
Oh no,
Are
I'm
you
gonna
gonna kill
kill
this
him
boy?
instantly.
Kill this little boy.
What's the damage, Allie?
7.
Okay, great. So he's
good.
shaking.
Yeah, he's shaking.
That's,
Woo.
yeah, that's perfect. There's a shot of Meadows' fiery eyes as they narrow. She lets out a breath, pulls the trigger, and we cut to a close shot of Davy's leg as the bullet skims through his pants and barely skims his leg. And so while no damage is actually done to him, I think he still feels for a moment, or until he looks, until he looks, he's going to think he's just been shot in the leg. As it hits the mud behind him and the gunshot rings out, he almost doubles down now that you're shooting at him to try to go after Hiram. And I guess it's his turn, unless you can do anything else, Allie.
No, I don't think I can do anything.
He's going to roll to become unshaken. Blew up his 4 into a 5, so he's unshaken. He's coming after you, Hiram. He's going to do an opposed fighting roll. He's basically trying to use you like a human shield and kind of try to put a knife to your throat. He's got a 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and spend one of these many bennies I've been graced with. I'm going to spend another benny.
Oh my.
Blows up a 4. Blows up his 4 again. It's a 9, my friend.
Okay, I rolled a 4 on my fighting and blew that up with another 3, so I'm at 7. Okay, so I think Hiram has seen Meadow come now and is like saving his bacon, and I think he is determined to not lose face in front of her. So I'm going to spend a red Benny to try to outmaneuver this guy and get the upper hand in this fighting.
Perfect. Beautiful.
So there goes my red. So I have 1 white Benny left, I believe. And that is a 1.
Oh.
So I am at an 8. Oh, God.
Fuck.
Oh,
man.
pickle.
So-
All right. Do I use my last Benny? Yeah, I think I do. I think I use my last. I think he really wants to not be a chump in front of Meadow, so that means I reroll all 3 of these, right?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Come on, Hiram. That is not sufficient. It's a 7. It's even worse than
That's
before.
a damn shame.
All right, yeah, so he loses this.
Davy grabs you. You try to break free. He twists one of your arms and kind of like forces you down. You get a knee in the stomach, and then he pulls you up, and you feel this small pocket knife pressed up against your neck as you're facing down the barrel of Meadow's gun about 20 feet away from you.
Meadow is aiming a gun towards him. He definitely knows she's not going to shoot him on purpose. She is a crack shot, and I think he probably knows that too. I also think he knows Meadow's probably not shooting to kill this kid.
Although, while you have that conviction, Hiram, there is a look in her eyes that makes you question that assumption.
Ooh, man. Okay.
This is Abel's mother.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, so Hiram is maneuvered, and he's got this knife against his throat, and Meadow is staring daggers at both of them with the gun up at the ready, and Davy is presumably right next to his ear. So I think Hiram has his hands out at the side in sort of a surrender, but, I'm not fighting back type deal. And he says, whoa, Davy, what you say you put down that knife and we go get you some moonshine? How's that sound to you, Davy?
I'd love that if I could trust a single word that comes out of your lying mouth, Hiram Crow.
I think you know me well enough that you know I don't want a knife in my neck, so this is the most honest you're ever going to get out of me.
There's a beat as he looks to you a couple inches away from his face and to Meadow holding a gun at him. Go ahead and roll it, man.
Am I just doing persuade?
Yep.
Okay.
Against his spirit. Probably got a -1 on his roll here because of the circumstances.
Sure. So everybody starts with a D4 in persuade. Do you think Hiram has the D4 or do you think he has a D6?
I think Hiram's got a
probably
D6.
got a
I think if
D6.
Meadow has a fucking D8 in shooting, I think
Trademark fucking
maybe Hiram
weapon.
can get a D8. Hiram could have a
Okay.
D8 in
I was
persuasion,
gonna
right?
say, if he doesn't have it now, he definitely has it at some point. Okay, I got I got a 2 and a 1.
Luckily for you, he rolled 2 2s with his -1. That means he's got a 1.
Yes.
So there's a second, and then he leans into your ear. I'm going to come find you tomorrow, Hiram. You ain't going to have some woman around to protect you. With that, he pulls the knife away from your throat. He puts his hands up, looking at Meadow, takes a few steps back, and then turns around and starts like fast walking and then jogging, and then looks behind him, and then like starts running, trying to hide the fact that he's scared, but just takes off running. Left next to this fountain is Hiram and Meadow Crow. Although the 2 gunshots that have been set off will no doubt bring some attention you don't necessarily want on your teenage selves here very soon.
I think immediately, as this whole situation is played out, Hiram's just been standing there, upright posture, hands out to the side, trying to be disarming, and the knife, leaves his throat, and Davy starts to beat it. But I think Hiram has remained standing where he is with his arms out, as Meadow is still standing there with a gun. So I just want to imagine it's almost like a point of view shot from Meadow holding the gun, and just seeing Hiram standing there with his arms out, looking much happier now. Smarmy smile on his face, as it's just the two of them for the first time. Meadow Nightingale, my guardian angel.
Well, maybe I won't be around next time, so maybe you should actually learn how to shoot, or maybe carry a knife, or do something productive with your time.
Well, don't tell me you ain't gonna be around next time.
Wait, who's to say? Mama's out of town today, but she might not be tomorrow.
She ain't around today, you say?
No, we should probably get out of here, huh? And I think she rests the rifle against her shoulder and starts to hurry off to maybe a side street somewhere where there's less attention and eyes.
If Meadow is turning away from him to hurry away, maybe we get a close-up of Hiram, and he just looks super pleased with himself. Just like, this could not have turned out better for me. That side grin as he puts his hands down and hustles to follow her away from the scene before people arrive.
Are there people about?
There will be shortly, yeah. I think the shot is from inside of, not necessarily an alley, but just in between these 2 wooden buildings,
Mm-hmm.
And as you run into it and run near the camera, you guys stop and put your hands on the buildings and look back as like a couple people run by. Probably a shot of them like looking at each other in the alley, and then you keep going for a while, and then we sort of cut to you entering another location. Where do you think you've run away to?
Is there a nearby crick
That's good.
If they've never really spent time alone together, but they've both been peripherally aware of one another and had, passing interactions, they probably just go somewhere by themselves. So maybe by like a crick. Or maybe a willow tree in a field or something like that.
Gotta fucking love a willow tree. Oh, that's her sister's name, isn't it?
Oh, that's true.
It is, yeah.
Well, then that will make it present in her mind.
That's
good
great.
then. So a willow tree. So that this whole conversation, there's a willow looming over them.
Oh, it's weeping. Oh, no.
A weeping willow.
That's great, you guys. So we see this shot of Hiram and Meadow making their way down this small creek. The scene is sort of them walking along the bank towards this old willow tree that all the kids carved their names into. Or maybe, is there something that could be similar to that, but not as tropey as that?
What if there's a big old rock? If, like, each time they go there, they carve an initial in, so, like, the deeper the cuts are, the more times you've been there,
That's cool. I
whoa.
like that.
That's very cool. We cut to this new scene where Hiram and Meadow are walking down this little creek, and up ahead of them is this big boulder, this big rock. And I think it's in the middle of sort of like a rock field, It's like a bunch of rocks sticking out of bushes. So like some kids come out and camp here, and, they spots where they can set up a campfire and set up sleeping bags. But there's this one big rock that, like you said, Allie, has these carvings into it of their names. And that's sort of ahead of you guys. But you're not quite there yet. And the rain has almost stopped at this point. You can't even hear it. You can just see the small ripples on the still parts of the creek as you walk by on the grassy bank.
Meadow takes off her hat and shakes some of the raindrops off and puts it back on, says, I feel like every time I see your fool ass, you're getting into some kind of trouble.
Regardless of how it started, I surely like the way you took that hat off the fella's head.
Well, you're lucky I didn't sneeze while I was shooting.
Do you often sneeze when you're shooting, Ms. Nightingale?
It's hay fever season.
Hay fever and hayseed.
She's walking ahead, I think, still maybe just being like, man, this guy's still following me. I don't know what to do. What do I do?
What's their body language like, guys?
Ooh, she tense.
I think Hiram's behind her, so maybe he sees the tension, but I think Hiram's in his element right now. This is a low-stress situation. He's charming. He's got the girl by herself. Wanted to have a conversation. He's got a baseline to get this going, so I think maybe Hiram's got hands in his pockets, just maybe even irreverently moved past the extremely tense situation they just left. Like, for him, it's already a memory. Like, it doesn't even occur to him that this should be something he's still concerned about.
Well, Ms. Nightingale, I might always seem to find myself in the middle of some trouble, but what were you doing there? Not that I'm upset you found your way into the middle of such a circumstance, mind you.
That's an excellent question. Maybe I shouldn't have been there in the first place. Sometimes you just end up a place. You don't want to tell your mom about it when she gets back, so you're trying to be secretive, and then you shoot off 2 shots in the middle of the town. How about that, Hiram?
There's like a bead of sweat that's rolling down Meadow's face. I think she's probably gripping her gun a little bit too tight as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm no expert, but I'd say maybe you like trouble a little bit more than you're letting on. You don't want Mama to know. I don't want my parents to know. So for all anybody's concerned, that never happened.
Well, that's a nice thought, but...
Such a beautiful day. The rain's clearing up. Heading to the rock by the creek.
What? You'd think it's over, but then my mom comes back and she hears from town. She's like, oh, Meadow, why aren't you home with Willow? Ugh, it's a whole thing.
Mama, you don't trust me? I was here just being a good girl.
Well, maybe she doesn't trust me.
Oh, you got a very trustworthy face, Miss Smith.
Oh, do I? You
I think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody talk back to you? Just cock that rifle of yours.
Didn't work too well earlier.
That worked well enough. I'm here. I'm in one piece. They ain't.
She thinks she scratches her head. That might be true.
Meadow, you sort of look up at this familiar place, pick up your step because you're almost there. Hiram, you see her snatch a rock up off the ground as she approaches this large boulder that sort of dominates the rock field. We see a shot of the boulder, and we can see the kids from Hayseed have all carved their names in this rock, and it's a tradition both of you know pretty well. Every time you come here, you carve your name a little bit deeper. So as Meadow comes up to the rock, whatever you're holding in your hand to carve in here, there's a close-up shot of Meadow's initials as she's carving them in. And they're like way deeper than most of the surrounding names. Hiram, as you walk up behind her, see her scratching her name in here. You take a note of that and look around to the rest of the names, and she must have come here dozens, if not hundreds of times. Hiram, you go to carve in your initials. They're just a couple feet away from hers, and we cut to Meadow as you sort of admire your work and run your hand over the initials to take away any loose dust in there. And then you turn to where Hiram's writing his name, his initials, and as he pulls the rock back, you can tell that like he's barely been here. His scratches have barely made a dent in this rock.
As Hiram's carving his name in, he looks over to her and says, "Well, looks like this is a favorite spot of yours."
I mean, well, it's quiet. Practice shooting or just sitting, thinking. I like it.
And still chipping away at the rock, and he looks over to her and says, "So if I maybe started coming here a little bit more often myself, I might run into you again."
That's a fair assumption to make. You're doing that real slow. You're bad at this.
Some things are worth taking your time for, Ms. Meadow. Art and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You can't rush art. You just can't.
All right. Well, show me this art. She puts her hands on her cheeks and leans on the boulder and watches your work closely.
Well, the beauty's standing in front of you right now. The true masterpiece of nature.
Standing in front of me right now? That's a high opinion of yourself there.
Oh, let me have this. Come on. You gotta build me up and break me back down like that. Come on. Your mom ain't around right now, right?
No, right now.
Means you a free woman.
Again, I say for now.
Freedom's however you want it to be. Can't attach a time to it. Freedom's an expression. It's a state of being, ain't it?
Maybe for you.
You seem pretty free to me. Walking around with your rifle, slinging it around, shooting bullets off in the middle of town.
I think she scratches her nose and looks away quite pointedly.
Doesn't always do to let other people push you around, Meadow.
I kind of feel like you're bossing me around a little bit right now.
Well, you can tell me to stuff it and take a walk.
I could.
Give it a try. Tell me off.
Stuff it. Take a walk.
I don't want to.
Well, go do it.
Well, take a walk with me.
All right. I mean,
Will
I guess
you please take a walk with me, Miss Meadow?
I suppose I could take a walk as a free woman, making up my own mind. I suppose. In the same direction you might be walking.
Well, I think that's a fair compromise.
Where would we be walking to?
Wherever the road takes us. Plenty of beautiful countryside. Seems like you know this little stretch of land a bit better than I do.
I think I could be agreeable to taking a walk. But I do have to be back to my sister Willow. Gotta keep an eye on her. You never know what she's gonna get up to, so...
Oh, surely. If she's as mischievous as her older sister, who knows what she could be up to?
Lord only knows.
Ladies first.
There's a wide shot, and in the foreground on the other side of the river is a willow tree. The wind slowly blows the branches, the leaves in the wind, as these two kids walk off along the creek. Later that evening, there is a shot of an old house. A house that's been in hayseed since its foundation and has traded owners many times. The current residents, the Nightingales, have spent their time attempting to make it more than what it is. It is a small cabin, but in the eyes of Meadow's mother, it is a palace upon which their dreams sit. What is some element of finery that is visible even in these evening hours, Meadow, as you return home?
I feel like the outside of the house is covered in like this really well pruned ivy. Because, you know, it grows over so many years and you have to make sure it's like not dying or cracking or like breaking up the siding. Like it looks nice.
The sky is still overcast from the day's rain. While the moon is out, it goes between being obstructed and then hitting the grass around you. You're walking home, I take it, yes?
Oh, I'd say so.
Is your family a family of, are they farmers? Are they...
I kind of figured since Willow is a tailor, that's kind of like the family business, maybe?
Ah,
because
that
like
is
Meadow
excellent.
made
Oh, that makes sense
the
then.
vest for Lucky.
That's great. So perhaps it's like a few 100 yards away from town.
Yeah, I imagine that you can still see lights in the evening through maybe some trees. Maybe they're not the thickest trees, but
If your family is a tailor, I think it's sort of a shop house then that has this ivory covering it. It's not exactly in town. It's not on Main Street. It's far enough away that your mother doesn't have to listen to the drunken hooting and hollering of so many degenerates that she hates. So as you walk down this dusty, worn path towards the ivy, I think there's a smile on Meadow's face. I think despite herself, she's had a good time today. She got to go out without her mother. Oh, but no. You stop in your tracks and immediately notice two things. One, your mother's wagon, your family wagon, is in front of your house, arrived much earlier than she should have. Your mother told you she would be gone for at least 2 days. And then secondly, a second wagon, a smaller buggy, like a covered buggy, riding towards you. And as you sort of stand there, this anxiety building up, your heart rate going up, and even this sort of chilled night air seems too hot. It seems like you should take off the jacket you have to calm down as this buggy approaches. And sitting in the passenger seat is a smug Davy Folsom, who gives you the widest shit-eating grin as he smiles at you and the wagon rolls by.
oh fuck.
Meadow has been in this situation before, and she knows the punishment is always worse when she runs.
I mean, Meadow's in pretty deep right now. She's got a gun, she's wearing pants. There's nothing to do but go back to the house.
You start to move your feet sort of mechanically trotting towards the house, every step sinking into this mud in front of you, sort of caught up in your thoughts, running through a million different scenarios that could happen as you approach. And before you have time to finish processing anything, you're at the front door. You look up, you can smell the fire that's burning inside, the light coming out from underneath the door in the night, and the smoke rising from the large chimney above your house.
I think normally she really likes that smell, but right now, I think it's just making her mad, because it means her mom's home. Her sister wouldn't have started a fire by herself.
Meadow reaches for the door, her hand clasping the brass. It's hotter than it should be as you turn it and open it with your sweaty palms and walk inside your house. This is the living room area of the Nightingale homestead. It has a door that attaches to their business, but this is not their business. This is your home. We get a beautiful establishing shot of the interior of this house. It is perhaps too nicely decorated and in aesthetic to belong to the family you're a part of, Meadow. But your mother is obsessed with appearances, and that's made immediately clear in this shot by a large collection of hats that she has prominently displayed along one wall as the camera moves, panning to the right, where we see a door to the shop that provides your family with their income, and then another door which your eyes quickly glance away from, as it is no doubt where your mother will be entering soon. To the right of that, a large fireplace dominates the room. Large logs stacked high inside of the brickwork spill out this radiant heat onto the wood floors. A poker has been left in the fire, the tip of which is touching the large logs, quickly turning to coal. And above that fireplace, above the mantle and the hearth, are 2 nails that would hold the rifle that's in your left hand. Your eyes glance first to your sister Willow. She's in a corner of the room on an old sewing machine. Not rusted, like it's well maintained, but it is clearly used. And as you enter, her eyes don't glance up, but you can feel her anxiety even from this far away. I think in this lighting, it's sort of backlighting her head, almost making it appear like she has the fiery red hair of your ancestry. She's wearing a nightgown. She's younger than you by a few years, and she's got both of her sleeves pulled up, and we can see in the flickering firelight like those white burn scars that skin heals over with after you've been burned, that smooth skin. And there's just dozens of them on her arms as she pointedly ignores you. There is a sadness and disappointment in your sister's eyes, and as she opens her mouth to speak, you hear one of the two doors to your left open, and your mother walks into the room. Your mother is an intimidating woman, not helped at all by her posture, rigid and centered, her arms folded at her waist. She has a scowl on her face that seemingly never goes away. She has red eyebrows and hair dyed black, pulled back neatly into a bun with no sense of finery. She's wearing city clothes, a long black dress with black lace at the bottom and around her high collar reaching almost to her chin and the back of her skull. Large shoulder pads exaggerate her figure as her black boots clack on the floor. Your mother does not speak. She marches in and stands there staring at you.
Well, you're back early.
And you're back very late.
Well, you probably wouldn't have known about that if you would have come back on the day I thought you were.
Plans fell through, and apparently I'm glad they did, on account of the trouble you've been raising for the Folsoms.
I didn't raise any trouble they weren't asking for.
Do you ever stop lying, girl?
I very rarely lie, Mom. I don't know what you want from me.
She unfolds her hands and starts to walk towards you, her intimidating figure clacking on the ground. Meadow, make a guts roll.
4.
You do stand your ground as your mother marches towards you. She stops about a foot away from you. She's a little bit taller than you.
I think Meadow raises her chin a little bit defiantly, but also to look her in the eye.
You seem awfully confident for a girl that's broken so many rules. Do you understand what's at stake here, girl? And she raises one hand up to strike you.
Meadow's gonna try and intercept that.
Let's make opposed fighting rolls. I think Meadow is untrained in fighting, so D4 -2.
Gotcha. 2.
Your mother is rolling a D4. She got a 4. She slaps you across the face. I think you don't even get up to stop her. I think it just comes down, leaving a red mark across your face. Adrenaline and fear start to rush through your body as you're forced to step back towards the door as your mother keeps her ground and then slowly returns her hands to in front of her waist.
I think Meadow's grip on the gun tightens.
What possible reason would you have for throwing your family's future in the gutter? Were you out with that boy again? Jason?
Well, it wasn't Jason this time.
Oh, this time, so you're quite used to these sorts of engagements, are you, my daughter? You think your sister wants to live here her whole life, Meadow? You're throwing her life in the trash because you can't keep your pants on? We cut to a wide shot that makes the contrast between her mother's large, elegant dress and her riding pants very apparent. And then we cut to Meadow's face.
I think it's still pretty red from the slap. I think she takes just one hand up and feels it and says, I think you might be the one throwing her life in the gutter if you keep damaging the goods that are gonna take you to high society someday.
Then explain it to me, Meadow, because I certainly don't understand. What were you doing today? Who were you with? Why did the Folsom boys said you took a shot at him today? You think that's what I want to hear when I come home early, after a sale falls through? Coming home to the sheriff at our home. And she slams down her boot on the wood floor beneath you. You rarely see your mother show emotion at all, and much less frequently do you see anything but anger. She seems genuinely shaken and distressed, which I think puts Meadow on a back foot. You're so used to these harsh confrontations with your mother, it's strange that any of her mask is slipping in front of you.
I was helping Hiram grow. One of the Folsoms had a knife. Protecting him was the right thing to do.
There is a difference, girl, between the right thing and the right thing to do for your family. The Crows have had plenty of opportunities to pull their lives out of the gutter, and what have they done with it? We are making a life for ourselves, Meadow, and so could they. Whatever trouble he was in, that's on him, not on you.
Well, I guess it's on all of us now, isn't it?
I guess so. What was the result of that, Meadow? Is he a better person now? Are him and his family going to stop being drunkards and come to the Lord? The Bible says something about that too, doesn't it?
I think, a small act of kindness is all it really takes, isn't it? You would know so much about kindness.
One act of foolishness is all it takes to throw everything away. When I came here with my family, we had nothing. And we still barely have anything. You want to live in hayseed your whole life, you stupid girl. And she turns and strides towards the fireplace, like she has done so many times before.
Meadow levels the gun at her. She cocks the lever.
Your mother reaches into the fire, this red-hot poker pulled out, and she turns around towards your sister and then looks at you with a look that, you haven't seen in her face before. You've never leveled a gun at your mother. There is disappointment first, followed by anger. And pray tell, girl, what do you think that would do? You plan to be hung and your sister thrown out on the streets?
She'd be better off.
That hits your mother kind of hard. Her eyebrows soften for a moment before returning to the anger. The poker sort of is lowered down to the ground as she steps forward, just a single step towards you, her arms at her sides, the poker in her right hand. You are too young to understand what the hell you're talking about, Meadow. Better off. Do you know what I protect you girls from every single day? What this world would chew you up and spit you out before you had a chance to cock that lever if I weren't here, protecting you and your sister, you petulant child. If you want to take the shot and ruin your life, go ahead, ruin your sister's life and put me down, because I don't want to live in a world where my daughter could be so damnably dumb.
Meadow's gonna shoot her mother's hand.
Make a shooting roll. I think that's a -4 because of the size of the target.
It's a 3.
Would you like to spend a Benny? You have a blue and 2 whites. The blue would let you add a D6.
Well, I'd like to use a blue. 12 overall.
Oh my God. How is the hand of your mother the hand of a tailor, her dominant hand, maimed for life?
Meadow is gonna shoot off her mother's thumb.
There is a deafening, thundering roar as your rifle fires. Blood immediately gushes from your mother's hand onto the floor as the poker slams into the ground, the tip immediately setting smoke to the varnish on the ground below you. Your mother staggers back, not quite screaming, but gasping and in complete disbelief of what has happened. You lower your rifle for a moment, your ears still ringing, even though you can hear the blood pumping in your ears, and then you feel your sister tackling you to the ground. Make an opposed fighting roll. Your sister also has a D4 -2, same as Meadow.
1.
3. She grabs you. I think without a raise, you still have control of the gun. There is a slam and then crack as you hit the ground. You can smell gun smoke, and you can faintly hear your mother's heavy breathing on the other side of the room as Willow rests on top of you. I don't even think it registers what Willow is screaming at you. There's just like a point of view shot from Meadow as her sister has tears in her eyes and is sort of like holding her on the ground, keeping her away from potentially killing her mother. And then you're sort of brought back to the sound of the world by these, her tears crashing down on you. And then it is at that moment that your sister's head is violently pulled backwards as your mother grabs her with her left hand and drags her towards the fireplace. Your mother stops a step in front of it, your sister sort of like awkwardly grasping at her hair that's just being pulled tight by your mother's claw-like grip, and she's being held half a foot away from the fireplace. We get this shot from inside of the roaring fire, the orange light spilling onto your sister's face as she sobs uncontrollably, not even able to scream as your mother looks back towards you with hate in her eyes.
Seeing her sister being dragged towards the fireplace, she chambers another round, and the shell falls to the floor, glinting in the firelight as she rises to her feet.
We get a shot of Meadow's finger on the trigger as the pressure builds up. And then the tension is released as we cut to Willow's face as she screams.
Meadow, please stop. Meadow, Mama, please, just stop. Stop for a second. Stop.
Your mother looks down to Willow and sort of like barely pulls her away from the fire. She's still holding her by her hair, but she's still mostly standing up. Her head is sort of cocked from her hair being pulled, and your mother has sort of put her between you and her, like covering half her body.
Meadow, I know you don't like Mama. I don't always like her either, but we're family. Please put down the gun. What are we gonna do without her, Mama? What are you gonna do without Meadow? You're both right. Nobody cares. Nobody's ever cared about us, and now you don't care about each other. You don't care about me. Put the gun down. Meadow, put the gun down.
Meadow grits her teeth. The gun lowers just ever so slightly.
You both talk about God and being kind to people, and you hate each other. What's the point of it? We are here for each other, and I know she hurt you, Mama, but you hurt me. You hurt us both. I know you're trying to make a better life, but it doesn't seem that way, because right now it's just terrible. Please let me go, Mom. Meadow will put the gun down. Meadow will be good. She'll stay here. She'll stay here for us.
Willow looks to Meadow with pleading eyes, and we cut to Meadow's face as her eyes soften before we cut to her mother.
You nearly shot off my damn hand, girl. I don't even know who you are anymore. I don't know what you've become or who you've been hanging around with, but I know this isn't you. This isn't our family.
If you hurt her again, I'll show you who I am.
She slowly lets go of your sister's hair and puts her hands to her waist, and instead of being calmly held together, she's fidgeting as she speaks.
I've never meant to hurt either of you girls. There's We can be a family, Meadow. But if you're going to stay here, if we're going to keep doing this can't happen again. You have to promise to me that you'll try. That's all I need. I need you to try. For your sister. Can you promise that?
I don't think Meadow says anything, but I do think she goes over to the fireplace and puts the gun back up on the mantle.
Willow takes a knee and starts to tend to your mother's hand as your mother looks to you with tears in her eyes.
You are our ticket out of the dirt. In the years to come, you will have so many suitors that can pull you out of the life you have. Don't throw away the only thing you've got on some drunk boy from Hayseed.
After she's put the gun back up on the mantelpiece, she turns very slowly to look at her family and makes eye contact with Willow, and I feel like she does soften in her core only for her sister, 'cause fuck her mom. She takes a step or two closer. I'll stay for you. But if she hurts you again, I'm picking that rifle back up, and we're gone. Come on, Willow. Let's go.
There's a wide shot of this whole house, the center frame, the large fireplace with the rifle put back above it, the floor scattered in shiny red. Willow turns her head back from where she's kneeling next to your mom, and her eyes follow Meadow as she exits the room. She turns back, wiping away tears, to her mother, stands up, and with great trepidation follows her sister out of the room, leaving her mother alone. Thank you so much for listening to Sounds Like Crows. I appreciate it. And thank you to Kent. Thank you so much, Kent, at the Zinak, Zinak, on Twitter, for setting me up with these two lovely people.
Thank you, Kent.
Thanks, Ken.
We appreciate you.
You're the best. We're so excited to play D&D.
What a good friend.
What a good friend. Well, he set us up, right? I mean, he put you guys onto Sounds Like Crows, right?
Yeah, and Savage
Yeah,
Worlds.
so he put us onto Sounds Like Crows. He introduced us to Savage Worlds as a system, which, without exaggeration, definitely changed our lives for the better.
Yeah, it really
Led
did.
us into this and Neon Heat and all sorts of good stuff.
It's just been a real whirlwind.
Yeah, your current campaign and your show is super cool. Where should people find it? RPG for You and Me.
We've got it in a couple different places. We have our website, rpgforyouandme.com. We're also on Twitter at the same, at rpgforyouandme. I'm also on Twitter at UCTheHat. I post a lot of art from the show. I do character bios and character art for most major new characters that show up, so that's fun.
It's super cool.
Doug, you're not on any social media. You're over that shit.
I'm not. Maybe someday I'll get a Twitter.
You're
but,
only on our Discord.
I am on the Discord.
He's also on our Discord, folks.
That's true.
You're only on Discord.
It's me. I'm Doug Berry. That's me.
And I also just want to say thank you to you guys. Genuinely, I've had these characters in my head for such a long time, and it's been a source of huge worry to me that I've discussed many times with many of the Crow boys of like, who the hell are we gonna find that could do this? And the answer has always been no one. And so for the longest time, I've thought that these scenes that I think are pretty important to the story would either not happen or would just be me playing these characters, which would be super weird. So I'm really grateful that you guys agreed to come do this. And I also think you're doing a pretty damn good job. And I'm very excited about what this the end result looks like at the end of the campaign. So thank you very much.
Dude, you're gonna make me cry. That's so nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's thank you for having us. This has been just such a pleasure.
Yeah, a
and
genuine pleasure.
genuine pleasure, both working with you and having the privilege of being a part of Sounds Like Crows. It's pretty crazy.
I can't believe I started listening back in like March, and I was like, man, these Crow boys are super cool. What shenanigans? And now I'm their mom? What the fuck?
Thank you very much. Go check out RPG for You and Me. I really enjoy it. And you guys aren't that far in yet into Neon Heat, so there's not that much to catch up on if you're current on Crows, which is a plus to me.
Today, episode 15 comes out.
Yeah, and it releases on Mondays.
Yep.
We're partners in crime. So thanks very much to Doug and Allie. Thanks to Kent, and we will see you next Monday.